Hi everyone, it's Danielle Scruton here with Susan Dugan, and we're going to start the fourth and final session of our webinar series, Parents, Children, and Miracles. So welcome everyone. I know everyone's going to join slowly, and just to catch everyone up, tonight we're going to share. Last week was more about presenting the material of Ken's book, Parents and Children, our most difficult classroom, and we spoke about the challenges and the ripe forgiveness opportunities that we have as adult children with our parents. And we had some sharing last week, but today is especially dedicated to sharing. So welcome everyone. I see people are slowly joining. And Susan Dugan is here with me. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Danielle. It's good to be here. Hi, everybody.
So I was speaking with Susan briefly before we started broadcasting here, and I think it's a really good place for us to start. It's from my own experience. I was saying the past week has been incredibly exhausting for me. I've started a new job, which in and of itself can be a little bit disruptive. So a lot of new things going on. But I was explaining as well that there's a person close to me who suffers with anxiety and depression and tends to go through different spells. And this week has been especially difficult for this person, and I have felt this person's neediness, and my call to support this person has been very draining. And we were talking about how the neediness in the parent-child relationship shifts, whereas, as children, we are the needy ones. And as our parents age, they become the needy ones. And I was sharing that at moments, I feel resentment for this person for choosing, for choosing this week, to have a low point and to need me so much in this way. And Susan, would you like to share some of your thoughts that you shared with me before?
Sure. Well, and I was hoping that we would talk a little bit about neediness in this final class, because need is really at the center of our relationship with our parents and children. Our first sense of neediness in a body is that we need our parents to meet all of these physical and emotional needs that we have. And of course, we come here because we believe that we talked a little bit last week about the authority problem and how, we believe that we created a different reality from God. And as a result, we challenged God for our authority and created this different self, and now are always acting out some version of this authority problem in our relationships. And central to that is this sense of neediness. And we project it onto our parents. We come here born into a body as a helpless baby, and that's a setup for being born to parents who can't possibly meet all of these needs. Ken referred to us in this workshop of Parents and Children, Our Most Difficult Classroom, as sort of perennial need machines. And we have all this neediness. Our parents can't meet all our needs. And so we're immediately in a situation where we're blaming our parents, on some level, because they're not meeting our needs. That's why we cry all the time,
Right.
And we learn to manipulate them so that we'll get picked up and we'll get taken care of. The parental impulse is to take care of your children, but we all know if we've been parents that we can't meet all their needs all the time, and that it's absolutely exhausting to try to do so, and that realization in itself as a parent is a very disturbing one, because we see that we, suddenly we have these visions perhaps of being the perfect parent. And of course we quickly realize that goes out the window in the first couple days, if not weeks, or weeks, if not days. So you know, that neediness is always a sign that we've identified with the ego thought system, that we're, you know, it's always this us or them. And so anyway, the template for that, you know, that we're first familiar with is within the parental relationship. And we have this situation where our parents can't meet all of our needs, and we often grow up blaming our parents for the reason that we're so needy as adults. And, you know, we go off into the world trying to also fill those needs from outside ourselves, and, you know, substituting. We were talking about that before. The first substitute for God that we grasp is our parents. And when that fails us, as it inevitably will, because all relationships, you know, here in the ego thought system are fundamentally dysfunctional. They can't functional people who believe that functional, the only functional part of our mind is the right mind, and that part of our mind knows that we never separated from God. So the functional mind doesn't come here. And so we're always acting this out, and we're always, again, trying to constantly substitute, and we carry that neediness into all of our relationships subsequently when we leave our parents. And we're always trying to, again, you know, manipulate people into somehow filling this sense of neediness that we have, and we act it out. We go on to act it out, you know, in our romantic relationships, in our with our teachers, you know, and in any relationship, especially relationships that are sort of inherently unequal to some extent, but all relationships from our perspective are unequal because we're the center of our universe, and no one really is as cool as we are, right? or as messed up as we are. It doesn't matter which side, you know, it's all about us. And so that when we're feeling that neediness from others, you know, that's a symptom of the belief in separation and of the authority problem. But when we're experiencing it as someone attacking us, you know, with their needs, which also as parents we experience, and we experience it with our kids as feeling all that need from our children. You know, I mean, that's something that, again, you know, feels exhausting at times. And we feel it from our our spouses and our romantic relationships, and, you know, all of those are bosses who are all constantly needing from us, you know. And so either side of that we're on, when we're feeling neediness, you know, we're really not, we're identified with the ego thought system, and we're identified with the belief of one or the other, and of specialness, and there's kind of no way out of it. So the fact that we're feeling attacked by someone else's needs or needy ourselves is a sign that we need help with this. You know,
right.
We're being bratty little children who believe that they ran away from home and really achieved that, and now, you know, these substitutes aren't working, and we're throwing a tantrum, basically, you know.
Well, and basically what I'm saying is this person isn't meeting my needs by being so needy.
Absolutely. My need is to do this, this, and this, and, you know, this person is preventing me from doing it, or whatever. And you know, when the truth is, nothing outside our mind has the power to take our peace away, and nothing outside us has the power to fill up that lack that we feel, you know, what's missing within ourselves, as when we're identified with the ego and the belief that we really pushed God's love away and can never find our way home. So the solution to neediness, on whichever end of it we seem to find ourselves in, you know, experiencing at any given moment, which are two sides of the same thought, is, you know, forgiveness is really to stop and catch ourselves and come back to the present, and you know, go back to those steps of forgiveness is, you know, I'm really not exhausted, as you were talking about in the beginning, for the reason I think. You know, it's not about the neediness of this other person. It's a present decision I'm making, you know, to identify with the ego, and I could see peace instead of this. The truth is, that's a lie. You know, the peace is still there. The love that we are together is still there. Because the truth is, if someone else is needing from us, whether we can answer their needs in that moment or not would not be disturbing us. We would be loving in whatever way we were responding, and we would just, you know, when we were able to respond to them, we would. If we weren't at the moment, we wouldn't, you know. But it wouldn't be a sense of being, you know, having our own peace compromised and our own needs compromised. It wouldn't be one or the other. It would just be seeing that call for love. And, you know, and we would see, and when we return to seeing our own need to have the person not need us, which is kind of what you were saying in this example, then, you know, when we can see that that's our call for love, that's my call for love right now. I'm the one who became afraid again, you know, and went back, forging back into the you know, the dream of specialness, where I'm the center of the universe again. And you know, it doesn't work. It's not going to ever work for me.
It's so sly the way, because I was so enmeshed in the world here, and in these little problems. I realized for an entire week, even though I'm leading the seminar and I gave y'all homework, I didn't do it myself. I completely enmeshed myself in this new job and in this person's strife and struggle, and felt as if I was, you know, Danielle, the center of the universe, balancing the two and trying to do whatever else that I needed to do. And I wasn't going within. I wasn't looking to that teacher of inner kindness and you know, really being honest about what was going on, honest about the thoughts in my head, which were, I've got too much going on, you know, I can't do all of this. I wish this person, you know, was better so that I didn't have to deal with all of this. And meanwhile, there's Jesus waiting for me to turn to him and give this to him, and to come back to that peace. Yeah, yes, Bruce is saying a perfect self-forgiveness opportunity, and it is, you know.
And thank you, Bruce, because that's you know, Jesus is just laughing gently. I mean, he's not upset about it. He's not.
No.
He's not you know, condemning you to hell over this. So it's, you know, again, when you did catch it eventually.
Yeah.
You know? And so that you didn't earlier is just shows us, yes, it's very subtle. Yes, there's a part of me that really, really, really doesn't want to practice this course, you know, because it would work.
That is so true. It's so true. I know, because
what it would mean for me, you know, because we don't know yet. And so, but we don't have to know all that it would mean is that we would be peaceful. You know, it's only at the very, very end of the journey that there's any giving, you know, that we wouldn't need this personal self. But we're not asked to surrender our personal self or our identity or our jobs or, you know, our romantic relationships or our kids or any of the normal things that we do in the world. We're just asked to change the purpose of them and use them as a classroom. So as soon as we do become aware of that in ourselves, it's really just practicing, paying attention to those negative feelings and where we're pointing the finger, you know. And whenever we're pointing the finger at something outside or at someone else or some circumstance outside ourselves and playing, you know, we're essentially playing the helpless victim, then that's a signal, you know, that's just a sign. And the more we practice, the faster and the more easily we catch it. But, you know, we all get busy. You know, there's a part of us that, again, doesn't want to learn this course. So we kind of wander back into the dream and into the ego thought system, and we become mindless, you know, and it takes us a while before the pain has to become enough to get our attention, you know.
And you put that perfectly. That's exactly how it felt. Coming to do this tonight and then looking back at my week, I was mindless. You
Right.
know, I wrote some things. I have a website where I blog, and I realized a post that I wrote 5 days ago, I don't even remember writing it because I was that out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but you're right, you know, the pain eventually becomes too much. And thankfully I have all of you here. And I had to be here tonight to wake up and remember that there's a solution. Yeah. Bruce is saying Jesus is the eternal Maytag repairman, and that we're not asked to give up the little we think we have. And he's saying us zombies merit pardon.
Oh, what was that last part?
Us zombies merit pardon.
Oh, right. Well, we
Yeah.
do become sort of zombie-like. We do become really robotic with this because the ego is our default position. You know, we love to forget that we're a decision-making mind. And when we've chosen the ego and we go running back into the dream, you know, which is really kind of where we are most of the time, then we've forgotten that we have a decision-making mind. And so, you know, the ego speaks first, the Course says. And, you know, but it's always wrong. And that's, you know, and so the one of the reasons that the parent-child relationship is so helpful is because it is our template for all our special relationships, and that neediness that is so embedded in the, you know, the reason that bodies join and not minds is because they need something from each other. You know, the ego needs to prove that it really exists, and it does that through a body, but it's not its fault. It's not my fault. And it does that through someone else's body. You know, it's not my fault, it's this other body's. And you know, if God's got to punish someone, he can punish this other body who was so needy with me that I couldn't get my work done, or whatever, you know, whatever at the moment we're doing. And I mean, it's so classic with with parents and children.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I remember when my daughter was, you know, little, and I just, and that was like the best time of my special life, you know, in which I love little kids. I adored everything she did practically. But if I'm honest with myself, that's not true, because there were a lot of things I wanted to get done that didn't get done, you know, and you know, I'm a writer too. And so, you know, there was a lot of times when I felt like I was so absorbed in her world psychically, you know, and that I didn't have any sort of private psychic space to write, or creative space, you know. And it's like there was a part of me, the ego part of me, complained about that, even as I absolutely adored her, you know. And so there's always going to be conflict within specialness in the world, you know, that we find ourselves in. We don't come here to experience peace, prolonged peace. You know, we had peace. And, you know, when we decided to run away from it. So, and then we get here and we're, you know, why does this always suck, you know? And why can't I get my needs met? And why are things so tumultuous here? And why is there so much change? And of course that, you know, we've forgotten that we set it up that way. So, you know, so it's not to beat ourselves up about it, but just to try to remember as those things happen with our children. And an example with parents, you know, as they become more needy and you know, they begin to deteriorate, which bodies eventually do, we're going to face anything unresolved in that relationship. We're going to face, you know, we're going to have to face as we're called in, or not, and suffer the consequences of just ignoring it, you know. But as we're called in, perhaps, and many of us are, to become more engaged with our parents again, and to maybe take over some of the functions in the world, or help them with their physical health, and, you know, their financial, well, you know, taking care of just normal things that they're no longer able to take care of, then, you know, all of those unresolved feelings will come up. But it's like we have another shot at it, you know, to resolve wherever we feel that they were not meeting our needs. We're going to feel resentment over them needing us now, because, you know, they didn't meet all my needs then, and we may be pointing a finger at them for ways in which we feel inadequate as adults, you know, because of the way we were brought up, or the way, I'm not good in relationships and intimacy or something because my parents were never really, demonstrative or whatever, where everybody has a story about their parents, and even the best of it, the best of relationships, again, can't meet all your needs, and there's something there that's usually hiding, and so part of the growing up spiritual growing up process can happen through our willingness to grow up with our parents. As we become more, we're called on to take more responsibility back for them, and we have that experience, that role reversal, in which they may now be acting out the bratty little kid, and we get to see, again, that really we're just, although the roles are different in form, and once again, we still share that same need to go home, and that's all we're really trying to learn here. And so we can look at our parents as learning partners, and even as we have to take more responsibility than they are for the day-to-day matters of living, we can love them. We can learn to really love them outside of that tyranny of needs that Ken called it, of the special relationship.
So we can almost drop the labels and the meaning behind them.
Yes, yeah, because as long as we need something still as adults, as long as we still need something from our parents, whether it's money or approval or some kind of an apology, whatever it might be, then then we're not really grown up. We have work to do,
Right. I'm just going to take this opportunity to invite anyone who would like to join us here in the room. If you've got something to share, or you're more than welcome to share it on the chat, and I can read it and share it with our audience. We'd love to hear from you. It's interesting. I have a friend who's quite a bit older than me. She's in her early 60s, and she was telling me about her guilt with her child. Her adult child, and how she feels she failed her as a daughter, as a mother. That she was too hard on her, constantly correcting her behavior. Nothing was good enough, and she felt like she was instilling perfection. She felt like she was instilling some kind of survival skills for the world. She was a single mom, and she was thinking that her daughter may meet the same fate someday, and that she wanted to arm her for the world. And now, as a calmer, wiser woman, reflecting on this, she has all this guilt. Mm-hmm. But it comes across very peacefully. I mean, it comes across as very I didn't know any better. I did what I could, but she very much wants her daughter to go to therapy and tell the therapist all the wrong things that she did, so that hopefully this person can magically undo the damage that she thinks that she did. And I found it fascinating, because I've known this person for a couple of years, and when I first met her, that wasn't the case. She felt really good about the way that she raised her daughter, but things had evolved in such a way that she had come to an understanding that she didn't do right by her. So I guess what I found fascinating was, again, the two sides of the same coin. No, whether or not it was the best way to parent, or it was the worst way to parent. I guess there was no middle ground there. There was no, I don't know, but I found it fascinating how she come to this conclusion and wanted some reparations still done in the world, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, is she a course student or not?
No, she's very spiritual, but not specifically the course, no.
Well, I think that's really, really common. I think because again, nobody can, we do the best we can as parents. We don't know how to parent. It's not like we come in knowing how to parent. It's a new job for which we've had no training, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's on the job training, right? We don't know. There's not one way to parent that's correct and one way that's not, and so we really are learning, as we go along. And I think it's very, very common. There is an awareness. Again, no parent can meet all their kids' needs, and we do. We're hard on our kids at times. Maybe perhaps as you were saying with her, believing that we're actually, preparing them for, it may be the way we were parented, or it may just be a belief that we have about, having them be tough enough for a world that is not very kind. And, so that, I mean, I think that all parents do a little bit of that. And if not a lot, and, or they go on one side of it or the other. They tend to, we talked about the authority problem again, a little bit at the beginning of this, and sometimes we're very authoritarian with our kids, and sort of critical, and taking the tough love approach, whereas other parents who are afraid of their own authority might err on the side of not correcting their kids and letting them do anything they wanted, and not giving them enough boundaries, and kids on either side of that may or may not suffer consequences in their behavior as adults. But from the Course's perspective, when those feelings come up for us as parents with our children, it's the same thing. As grown, our children are now grown, and it's a using that relationship now in the present to learn to forgive ourselves, and to I would say that in that example that you were using, if that's happening, if we're experiencing something like that in the way we feel with our grown children, that regretting some of the ways that we treated them, and then wanting to make them go to counseling or something, so that they'll be fixed or changed. I mean, there's nothing wrong with encouraging that, but it really is their choice to do that. It's really their, again, that's a way of sort of trying to now compensate for what we think we did, and all it is still trading that guilt back and forth. Whereas the practice of it is to really see your kid right now, and to be in relationship with them right now, and and to work with staying right-minded yourself, and then if there's something to say, if there's something you would be loving to them in whatever way was appropriate. But they're grown-ups now, and so it's not really for us to jump in and try to make up for something we did to them. It's more to be available to them, and to help them in any way that's requested. But they're not children anymore, Right. And I think it's important for us to honor the power of their decision-making mind.
Yeah, and in that example with her, I tried to. She was kind of going on, and I tried to stop her. And at one point, she said, "I know what you're going to say, and you're going to try to make me feel less guilty." Oh, and I realized in that moment, my job was really just to listen to her, and I kind of sat back and took a breath. She needed to be heard. She didn't want to be consoled, or for me to say, "Oh no, it wasn't like that," or she simply just needed me to hear her out. And it's when I think about the difference between her view of her parenting a few years ago and her view a couple like now, I can see it's related to what you were saying. It's just this change in beliefs. And whether or not she becomes willing to look at those beliefs with a higher power is up to her. But that it was interesting to see that shift. And I know from my experience with the Course that for me to simply do the loving thing and hear her out, helps her.
Absolutely, absolutely. It gives her, it's really, it's her decision how and which teacher she wants to listen to, and you're listening to perhaps a need that she's not aware of. The need to change her mind, the need to heal, to find her innocence in this. We're all very attracted to guilt because guilt is what keeps this going, and so guilt is what keeps the idea of me going. Again, the ego's thought system, and what its secret agenda is, not so secret really, it's pretty apparent, is to prove that I really am guilty, that I really did this to God, and so therefore I really exist apart from God as a separate identity, but to get away with it, it's someone else's fault. And that someone else could be me, as long as I'm guilty, as long as somebody's guilty in this relationship, as long as somebody can be pointed at,
Mm-hmm.
to who did this, and so she may be very invested on a level that she's not aware of, that I really messed up my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
I really am a guilty, the home of evil, darkness, and sin, as the Course puts it. And it sounds like it would be impossible for us to be attracted to guilt, but it's really what we all are attracted to, and it's not the guilt we think it is. It's reflecting this other guilt that is so deeply buried in our mind, and we are constantly defending, and our relationships are our defenses, to prove that it's real.
Absolutely. Deborah's saying, she's asking if we can address another issue.
Sure.
She's saying, with so much focus in contemporary times to condition the body through physical activity, where does the Course stand on passing this belief on to children? To condition the body through physical activity. Oh, like exercise.
Exercise, yeah. Or maybe there's a lot of emphasis now on obesity in children.
Right.
We sort of swung the other way a little bit, and whereas there was so much, I'm sure that there still are a lot of eating disorders and things like that, and problems, but there's also now a huge epidemic of childhood obesity in the United States anyway, and so but the Course doesn't, again, take any stance inform on one particular. It's never about behavior. It's never about, prescribing what you should specifically do, how you should specifically raise your kids, or what's the right thing to do in terms of behavior in a relationship on any level. What it would say is that if I have an issue with my children about their body image, or an image, an issue of my own about body image, in which I feel, I'm driven to try to experience perfection or something like that, or I'm worried about obesity or trying to become healthier, and how I'm struggling with that, or my kids are struggling with it, then it's really about, again, looking at, asking for help with my mind, with which teacher with remembering that this is a classroom that I'll be using to learn, giving it a different purpose, and saying, what I really want to learn here is what's the deeper need that this is serving, and what is, if my child is struggling with physical activity, overdoing it or underdoing it, then how should I see them, and how do I honor the power of their decision-making mind? And so as I'm, obviously, there's obvious things in the world that you would do. You can try to offer enough exercise for your kids, and healthy foods in the house, and all those kinds of things, and to model whatever behavior you could model. Those are just obvious things that we would do as a parent. But at the same time, not to become obsessed with the outcome of it. We don't know the atonement path of our selves, let alone our kids. and And, they may be on some level needing to experience some kind of imbalance there, and so I don't know the details of what you're asking, Deborah, whether it's a problem that you're experiencing with your kids or not. But the course's answer would be to work with your own mind as you go through this, and really looking at, again, the steps of forgiveness as you become upset or triggered or whatever. If your children are not doing what you think they should be doing, even though you're trying to provide the best possible means for them. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was just going to recommend Ken's little book on overeating. It's a conversation that he has with two women, two students, and it's fascinating. He goes really, really deep with food, and I found it incredibly helpful. I've read it many, many times, and would highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I think it's applicable to all addictions as well, that book. Yeah. And it's also in a CD format, and I would echo that. I think it's, for everybody, it's really like, for anybody who's seriously interested in Ken's work, it's something that's applicable to all of us.
Absolutely. And just to speak to your point about that this is something the child might need to go through. As someone who has, anyone who's suffered through anything maybe can say this, but I personally have suffered with bulimia for 15 years of my life, from the age of about 15 to 31. And I know that it was absolutely something that was helpful to me, and it was something that I was healing. I was able to heal while practicing the course, and it was right there in my face, and something I could go to Jesus with, and a great way for me to develop trust. And it was just something that I know I just needed to go through. There's no one to blame.
And I think that can't really be emphasized enough. And as parents, we want to be able to control and protect our kids. And again, the course isn't saying don't do the normal things that parents would do. Again, trying to provide your kids with the best possible, healthiest, food and lots of physical activity. That's good advice for anybody. But you don't know what children have come in with their own atonement paths, and how they're going to find what their agenda is for this lifetime, and keeping in mind that we're all, again, those brothers and sisters, even though it seems like we're parents in this role right now with this other person here. It's that inequality is temporary, and in truth, it's masking our equality as brothers and sisters who are trying to find their way home to the awareness that we're just one Son of God. Yeah.
Absolutely. Bruce just said a couple things here that I'll mention. He was saying listening without condemnation is so healing. I think he was referring to my friend, my older friend. And then he added that we have a big time oxygen addiction here.
Well, I can't always emphasize that, that just breathing, we were killing, we were cannibalizing.
Yeah.
Because
that's something that he talks about in the Overeating as well. About
taking, again, we all feel this tremendous void within. And, that's that neediness that we were talking about. And we're trying to substitute for eternal love, eternal, all-inclusive, unconditional love that we think we've destroyed. And so, everybody is secretly walking around with this horrific thought and sense of loss and emptiness. And, we're off. It doesn't matter what substitute we're using, we're frantically trying to fill that hole. And we do it with our relationships, we do it with food, we do it with money, we do it with oxygen, we do it, it never really stops. We can't get enough. There's not enough of anything out there to ever make us feel that we are even touching the void.
I think that's really important to address too. No matter what someone may appear to be experiencing, some people can be very raw with their emotions and raw with what's going on, and it's written all over their faces in their lives. With other people, it may be masked more in some way, but ultimately we are all experiencing that. Just today I went to go visit a friend who had recently had a baby, and she lives in this beautiful house and has a very idyllic life, and but there were still troubles adjusting with the baby, and juggling two. She's got two now, and just so even though the exterior of her life is very, as I said, idyllic, there's still, we can't fill the void with these things. So eventually we're all gonna come around to looking within and looking for the better way. So
right. Again, the way we get rid of the pain is to project it. And, we think it's somebody else. It's something else that's causing this. And some of us are better, at projecting, or some of us have just reached the point where the projection is just not working anymore. And that's really kind of the prerequisite to the spiritual journey, this isn't working. I don't feel loved and loving, and nothing really makes it, all these things I thought would solve it aren't solving it. And there has to be sort of an awareness of that for every heart at some point. That's what initiates our return.
Yeah, Deborah's saying that's why I love the Course so much, as a reminder that in oneness, all our needs are met. What a gift.
Yeah.
And Bruce is saying anything less than perfect oneness requires attacking everything else. Yes. So true.
Pretty much everything. It's one or the other. If we're we can't be a little bit insane or a little bit sane. It's, if we've chosen the ego, we're completely insane, and we forget it. Just like your example in the beginning. We can go for a whole week or months, just forgetting that we chose this, that we're in charge.
Absolutely. And as I was talking to you, I realized that with this person, I've been on the other side of that neediness. I've been the needy one with this person, and that was something I was completely mindless to this week. As I was cursing how much of my time and energy was required, I was forgetting that I've been on the other side of that.
And that recognition, Danielle, that's the recognition that you're the same, that we are the same.
That's exactly what I mean. It really is a no, there are no separate interests. Even though at this point I could list tens and tens of different things that this person needs that that I don't right now, but it doesn't. But that's the form. The content is the same. We've both forgotten and become afraid of love again. Just at different points. And I'm going to mess up the line from the Course, but basically the miracle is offered by the saner of the two, right? Mm-hmm. That
right. Yep. Yeah, and we really, that's where compassion comes from in our relationships, when we begin to see that that person is feels like they've lost their innocence and can never find their way home, just like I do. It's not, we tend to always, again, everything is about us. We tend to not think that others have as much trouble as we do, Yeah. And we're just so preoccupied with our own dream, and we forget that everybody's the center of their own dream, and it's usually a pretty bad nightmare, at times anyway, and it's everybody's scared of their own dream, and
so the next step for me at this point is just to be willing to recognize that I may not be upset. I'm not upset for the reason that I think. Do you like how I tried to keep a little bit for myself? I might not be. I don't want to commit fully to this whole business. Oh gosh.
But that's okay. That's the beginning, right? That's the second. I could see peace, right? Maybe I don't. but I could. And that's really just, that's enough, because that opens the door to the right mind. Now Jesus can, you can hear Jesus to say, come a little closer.
I have to say, even just recognizing this, that this isn't my problem, this isn't Danielle's problem. It's like a huge weight is lifted.
Right.
Like I don't have to needle this to death here in this world. I can take a deep breath, and I can be willing to see this differently. And because I've done this enough times, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but because I've done this enough times, I know generally the feelings that are going to unfold after this. It's a sense of calmness, and that it's taken care of, that I don't have to worry, and that my job, my next steps, it will be made clear to me. Yeah.
And they will be some reflection of kindness and and compassion, because they couldn't be otherwise, because you return to compassion for yourself,
Yeah.
You let go, you let your own neediness drop, and so you see there's no need,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Or you see the only need that you share, in this.
Right. Yeah. Which is, it's, I've called out for love, because I've asked Jesus for help in seeing this differently, and I know that in some form, in some way, I will be extending that love to this person. Yeah. Deborah was saying, no need to analyze and expend so much energy. But the ego loves to analyze.
Right, but it is that sense of it's not, it's a relief, it's a sigh of relief, because it's, there is all this energy when we're trying to fix or change or fulfill, all the wishes and our own expectations, others' expectations, get rid of that, make up, compensate for the guilt, all of that. It's terribly exhausting. It demands so much energy, and just being present with Jesus, and just taking that little step, just opening the door that maybe I'm wrong about this, and I'd like to see it differently. That's all we have to do. The rest is, that's our only contribution.
That's right.
So, yeah.
If there's anything that anyone else would like to add in the chat or share, more than welcome to, and to join us here in the room. We have about 10 minutes left. Is there anything that we haven't touched on, Susan, that you would like us to touch on tonight?
Well, I guess maybe just emphasizing again that this is a very present practice. So, and when we're talking about the parent-child relationship, when so much of that relationship, our reactions to it, are so caught up in the past and the future, when we think of as adult children, we're so often pointing to the past in our relationship with our parents and comparing it favorably or unfavorably with the present, and and then fearful, perhaps, of the future, of what's going to happen with our parents as they become older, and what neediness they'll have of me, what those demands might be, or whether they're, even if we're still feeling some financial, believing that they should compensate for what they did. Some people really want financial. Or hoping to get something financially from their parents. All of that stuff that comes up, it's really right now working with my reactions about that, and practicing forgiveness now as I become aware of my neediness, or my resentment, or my fears for my parents, or my worries about my own involvement with them. And the same thing with our kids. It's such a your example with, your friend who was kind of, going over, kind of just kept rehashing the past about how she had failed her daughter in the past and perhaps damaged her. And was sort of, it sounded like, really becoming a little, wanting her to fix it, maybe a little bit of an obsession there of trying to make it better. And so it's as those feelings arise, and someone like you who's raising your kids right now, and perhaps worrying about their futures, and how you can meet all those needs in the future for your kids, and will they be tough enough to go out into the world, or and survive on their own. And so whenever we're in the past or the future, that's a good indication that we've chosen the ego too, and this is and we're feeling some kind of reaction about it, some kind of upset, some kind of worry, some kind of neediness. So this is really always a real present decision right now. At any moment, I can choose again. I can stop myself and catch myself and see that right now I became afraid of love again. That's all that this is about. And I have a teacher in my mind that is all loving and knows that that we all make it home, and that this is all, that we're all safe, and that all children are loved, and all children grow up to be like him, to remember that we're the one Son of God. And so to be in that contact with Jesus throughout our day in a present way, in some present way, through this practice of forgiveness, that's really what helps us grow up. And that's really what the need of every heart, everyone that comes here has the superficial wanting to prove that the separation is real, but the deeper need to prove that that I was wrong about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And God still loves us,
Yeah. We have a question from Deidre. She's asking, what are your thoughts on being under no law but God's, as in as it talks about in the lesson about not being bound by the laws of nutrition, health, and money?
That's not my understanding. I think that's sort of a level, what Ken would call level confusion. Mm-hmm. The Course, again, is never really talking about anything in terms of behavior, and it's talking about at the level of the mind. So we are asked to ask for help, that from our right mind, as we go through, as long as we believe we're here, as long as I believe I'm a body, which if I'm experiencing my body as real, I do believe I'm a body. And the whole thrust of the Course is not to fix or change or make the body live longer or any of those things. It's to take care of our bodies in a normal way. So to not to do the normal things that we do to take care of our bodies, as I was saying before, do the healthy things that which do change in this world at any given moment. It could be a different scenario, but to try to be kind to our bodies and take care of our body's needs, but to use the body again as a classroom to learn that we are not bodies. We're not vulnerable bodies, but one mind. And the idea is not to prolong, to try to manipulate our experience and make a better body that will survive forever or something like that, that's indestructible. But to recognize that whatever whatever I came in with, whatever script I'm reviewing right now, in terms of this body, what the body does or doesn't do has no power to take my peace away. And so if my body is ill, then I still deal with it at the level of the mind, and asking to see peace instead of this, and to be kind to my body. And the Course doesn't ever talk about denying the body, and calls that a particularly unworthy form of denial. But it does say that as you're going through this, you kind of use a compromise approach, in which again you use the body as a classroom, in which you learn, we ultimately learn that we're not bodies, but that's at the very top of the ladder, at the very end of the journey. And when we're no longer, what changes is our identification with the body as our only identity. We become more and more identified with the right mind, which sees only our loving oneness.
Yeah, and I think you can look at this as to the extent that it is making you suffer. how are you feeling as you're going through this? If you're not feeling particularly healthy and wanted to make some changes to your diet, what the feelings behind the image are what you can bring to the Holy Spirit. If you're having money issues, obviously on the level of form there are things that you can do, but you want to look at how you're feeling with the feelings that are being brought up. That's what you're going to take to the Holy Spirit, and again, with no expectation that it's going to unfold a certain way in form.
It doesn't mean it. Yes. So you would, if you become right-minded, you would be kind in whatever you were doing and in your approach to the body, and it would, you would just know what felt kind to do for the body, but without any expectation of what that looks like. Because again, we don't know our own best interests. We don't know our own atonement path. And, maybe the best lesson I can learn is that, my body can continue to, in appearance, and, and seem to suffer and seem to be sick. And yet, I can still feel peace. The pain is not front and center, and, my experience is still of love. And that can be, ultimately the body goes. I mean, the body is not, is not the important thing. And we're told never to look to healing as evidence of to the body's healing as evidence of healing of the mind, because we can't judge that. We don't know what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob just has a question, but it's a big question for 4 minutes left, Bob. But you know what? We'll bring it out anyways. He's asking about awakening. He says, does that happen on earth or after we have passed?
There's no one awake on earth, but it has nothing to do with life or death. So awakening, again, is awakening to an undifferentiated union in the mind. It has nothing I, Susan, don't awaken as Susan, as a body. There's no awakening here as bodies. We awaken and realize that we're not bodies, and that we're still that that abstract union in the mind. And so, although we may appear to be here in the real world, we know we're not here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if
no, that's actually made that very clear.
Okay. Well, that would be the Ken's answer, and that would be from my understanding, the Bruce's answer.
And it's my understanding as well. So. These are things that people may have different takes on it, but Susan and I do tend to be students of Ken's, and I mean, not that he's the be-all and end-all, but for us, the teacher that we are helped most by. Right. I guess that's the way I put it. Okay, I think we can wrap up. Deidre just says, thank you. I appreciate hearing perspectives on this lesson, the lesson about being under no law but God's. There seems to be many interpretations of it, and there absolutely are. This got touched on a few times at the Miracle Share Conference. So thank you for your question. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a wonderful webinar series. This is my first time doing something like this, and it was great. I really appreciate all the participation, the questions, and the enthusiasm and the little one-liners from Bruce. Those are always awesome. And thank you, Susan, for your wisdom and your willingness to share, and for showing up here.
Well, I really enjoyed it. It was fun, and thank you for it's a great topic, and there's so many great topics. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah,
I enjoy that. I think it's a good format, and let us know if you like this kind of format and have any suggestions, don't you think? And and we'll definitely consider doing some more topics in the future.
Yes, we would love feedback. You can hit us up, both of us, up on Facebook or on Miracle Share, and I think we'll probably send out a little survey just to see what you guys thought of the format and everything. So any feedback is welcome. So thank you, everyone. We're going to sign off, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
Bye.